Hey guys, so this is part two of how I built my sleeper pond with a window. If you didn't see part one, go back and check it out. It was the first stages of where we're up to. Speaking of where we're up to, I just concreted in the bottom drain. I was then just starting to fill that in and get that all back to being nice and level. So we've gone way past that now. So sit back, relax, and find out what I did next. Hey guys, so I'm Jamie, this is Keeping It Koi. Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, welcome. Hope to earn your subscription today. So yeah, as I was just saying, in the last episode, we left off with me concreted in the bottom drain, and these are the next few steps that I did along the way to build the sleeper pond. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy, and we'll catch you at the end. So this is where we left off. The bottom drain was all concreted in and dry, as you can see there, safe to walk on. So yeah, pipes all level, concrete's in, and I've started backfilling the hole. So now we're on to the next stage. Sleepers finally arrived, all 16 of them. Already got a couple down, you'll see here. Just getting me first measurements, making sure everything's all still straight and level and gonna fit right, which luckily they did. More digging to do later and take that off. I left that bit of soil all the way around at the minute because I was insulating the pond, which you'll see later, and I'll shave that back a bit later. But yeah, at this stage, just checking all the sleepers actually fit on the pond. And all the corners are square, everything's level, sand is down, the steps level, all looking good. All the old bits are out that was holding the concrete collars in place, all the old wood framework, that's now out as well, so we can crack on and get on with the build. So covered the bottom drain, as you can see there. That's all now level with the rest of the base of the pond. The hole where the pipes were coming up, that's all now filled in fully as well. And then started getting some bits arriving. So first off, I ordered the parts to finish off the bottom drain run. You can see here I got my T-piece. I'll put a T-piece as low down to the ground as I possibly could for me purge line. Some people have purge lines, some people don't. In my opinion, if you can have one, why not? You know, doesn't hurt to have a purge line in the system. You might never need it if you've got a good enough pull through your bottom drain run, but it's there just in case, you know. I also got, as you'll see here coming out of this box now, my ball valves for the bottom drain run. So the first ball valve would have been obviously for the purge line, and then the other ball valve was to isolate it from the filter if I ever needed to do any maintenance or work on the filter. So I got the big heavy duty 4-inch ones, stupidly expensive, god knows what they are now, but they were 75 quid each back then. Absolutely redonkulous, quite stiff on them as well. And I did do a video on how to loosen your ball valves. I actually need to go and re-loosen a couple of mine that are actually on the pond currently because they've got stiffer over the time. So in the summer I will be draining the pond down a little bit and loosening them off and then putting it all back together again, but that's a job for the summer. But yeah, cracking bits of kit, and it's time to get the rest of the walls up. So just here showing you how I marked out and cut me sleepers to get the perfectly straight edges and the good cuts. And once my edges were measured and my line was drawn, then time to get the sleeper cut. So I was doing my sleepers with, as you can see there, the Makita circular saw. It is just a standard size saw, so they did need flipping and cutting from the other side. Wasn't too difficult to get it all lined up, and I'll show you in a second how I did that for those of you that are building sleeper ponds. Cut through like a knife through butter. Look at that, brand new blade that was as well, so it did make it a bit easier. Then once that's done, I'd flip the sleeper, dropped it there. Bear in mind these sleepers were 4.8 meters long, and I carried every single one of them from the front of the house past 7 houses, down an alleyway, and then back 7 houses. So yeah, it was a long way to carry these round, and as you can tell there, they weren't light, not at all. But anyway, back to the cutting. So you saw obviously I'd cut one line straight across the top there, and then what I'm going to do, as I'm probably telling you in the previous video here, pop your saw blade in your line and then cut it nice and straight again down the back of the sleeper. And yeah, cut another line through there. And then you've got your line to follow for the final cut on the other side. And that, if you line it up right and cut it straight, should match up perfectly with the first cut you made on the other side. So would have been more ideal if I'd have used a set square, but for some reason I was freehanding it. But you'll see in just a second that there you go, cut all the way through in just a second, that my freehanding skills weren't too bad, because I'm about to lift it up and show you the cut. And there it is in all its glory. So you can just about see the saw marks. There is a very tiny little lip there, but a quick blast with a sander, you couldn't even tell. But yeah, if you don't have a big enough saw to get through them in one go, it's either hand saw or do it the way that I just did it. Once that was done, case of just checking all my levels again, make sure all 4 sides were level, and I did this for each row going up. Some of the sleepers I did jiggle around a little bit because, as I say, they weren't all exactly the same size, which you'll see in another clip later on. Some were slightly wider than others, some were slightly taller than others. So I did have to plane a little bit down. I wish I'd have took my time a little bit more on the sleepers, to be honest, because there was 2 sleepers that had a bit of a gap on. And I wish I'd have spent a bit more time sanding and planing, but it's up and it's solid and it ain't going nowhere, so it's good enough for me. But you can see there, got 4 sleepers down now, and each one was perfectly level at this stage, because obviously they're just laying on the concrete collars, which is certainly doing the trick. It keeps the sleepers dry. A lot of people just put the sleepers straight on the soil. I decided I didn't want this, because having the concrete collar, and then around the concrete collar there's stones for draining, so the water runs straight off, which is ideal. And once all the sleepers were cut, it's time to put the pond together. So they're only held in place at the minute by the the corner brackets. There's no other screws or rebar in the sleepers at this stage, but they're all painted, and I just left them there to all dry in situ. You can see there just a couple of brackets just to make sure everything was all held where it should be, and it was then a case of marking everything up ready to go. So obviously I had to work out the window. It was already ordered, I believe, at this stage, so I was just starting to mark out the window frame, The paint I used for my sleepers is the good old-fashioned proper creosote. You can't really get that anymore. I remember one guy did leave a comment on my channel saying he can still get hold of it if I ever needed any more. Appreciate that. But yeah, so this is what I made my window frame out of. Solid steel, box steel. It was 25mm because that was the what I was going to insulate the pond with. 25mm insulation, so it was ideal doing a 25mm box steel, plus I was ordering the window at 25mm, so that made basically everything flush when the pond was finished. There's the insulation that's arrived. So again, just working out here the box steel, so you can see at this stage what my idea was. Bit of box steel down one side with a screw in each sleeper. That helps keep the sleepers, you know, perfectly straight, perfectly level and perfectly flat. And that went top to bottom, and that also adds then extra strength to the sleepers, to the pond and to the window. One screw through into each sleeper. I did have to drill those holes in the box steel. Obviously I didn't order it like that. I just bought one length, cut it all to size, and drilled my own holes, measuring it on the sleeper. So each sleeper had a hole bang in the middle of each sleeper, and then the cross section to go across that the window obviously was actually going to sit on, and I believe I put 6 screws in that one, and that would go then in between each pole, and you'll see that later. It was then time to start working on the rebar. So that was the longest drill bit I could find at the time. I went for 12mm rebar, and as you just saw there, it doesn't reach through all 4 sleepers. So what I did was drill through the top 2, and the drill bit managed to just go into the 3rd one and start a hole. Not an easy job drilling through sleepers. I mean, that is one of the most powerful Makita hand drills there are, but I would have been better off with one of their SDS drills. But I'd knackered mine at that. I've got one now, but at that time mine was completely knackered repairing someone's fences, because I think this bit was just after Storm Eunice that we'd had that year, and yeah, that was a fun storm. Damaged a lot of people's ponds and a lot of people's properties. But up and down anyway with the drill. Keep pulling out the sawdust. It's the best way to do it, then your drill bit don't get jammed. But as you can see there, I'm almost halfway into the 3rd sleeper there. So it was then a case of undo it once I'd gone round the whole pond and put all my holes into that deep. It was a case of going back round the pond, undoing my corner brackets, and just drilling it through into the very bottom sleeper there. You can see there, and I've marked out my drill bit, how deep I want to go, and bit of tape, and then as you can see there, about 1 inch from the bottom I was, just so the rebar didn't go all the way through, and that way it would keep the pond, very little chance it will soak up water from the bottom, and obviously the tops were all sealed in. But yeah, just measuring there with one of the other drill bits I had, and as you can see, it was the perfect size. Once that was done, I put all the sleepers back on the pond, and then screwed them into position. They were 300mm screws, and obviously the sleepers are only 20mm, so they went through one whole sleeper, and they're countersunk as well, so would have gone into the next sleeper by what, 103, 104mm, maybe even 105. So basically just over 10 centimeters. Once they're all fixed in place though, time to get the old grinder out, and a few people commented on this video, although it was actually my most popular video to date. Reached over 7,000 views that putting the rebar in. So thank you everyone for watching that video. But yeah, a lot of people said, why on earth am I using a grinding disc to cut the rebar? But it's not actually a grinding disc, it's a universal disc. It's for grinding and cutting. Made a nice fireworks display for you all there. You're lucky there's no sound on this video, because I did have to put a headphone warning out whilst doing this, as it was very, very loud, shall we say. I think there was a headphone warning as well for when I actually bash the sleepers in. But anyway, once they were all cut, it's just time to double check my measurements, make sure it was an inch from the bottom. Check it on several different areas, make sure we're right, which we was. So it was then a case of bashing it in, and yeah, that was a fun task. Wasn't easy, shall we say. I've sped it up here a little bit. This is only ×2 speed, but yeah, it took some bashing. Bear in mind I had 16 of these to go around the pond. Should have found a 13mm drill bit, but never mind. Or bought 11mm rebar, if there is such a thing. But hey ho, they went in eventually. It would have been a lot easier if the sleepers were dry during the drilling and during the bashing, but obviously the more wood gets wet, the more it expands, and the more difficult it is to bash them in. So I'm just climbing up on it now, trying to get a good whack on it. But yeah, there was certainly a headphone warning during this section, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, we're getting there now. It's a bit too low for being up there now. Back down and get it the rest of the way in. And 3, 2, 1, voila. Final bash. All nice and level, plumb, and as you can see, tight as anything, and that ain't then going anywhere. Then got some more deliveries. My skimmer finally arrived. Got one of the JBR plastic skimmers. Great bits of kit. Don't really use that basket anymore. Just pain in the arse to keep cleaning it out. I thought, well, why am I using a basket when I've got a drum that will clean out any rubbish that goes into the filter anyway. So there's the weir plate. That just slots in there. As you can see, lovely skimmer. And each one of them holes on the weir plate there is about 1 inch thick, which is why I don't keep the small koi in the big pond. But yeah, that was the lid and faceplate. So I cut me hole, rebarred as close as I could, obviously to the skimmer. A few extra screws there. Got another one there. Bear in mind, although these are 300mm screws, they're also 12mm wide as well. And then a couple more rebar along that section with a couple more screws. My drum then finally arrived. Well, I say arrived, I had to go and pick it up. But as you can see there, I was very excited to get me drum. That wasn't in my original budget, but hey ho. It's then time to start working. Oh yeah, I just snapped a blade there on me planer, but never mind. But yeah, just starting to work on the insulation. Yeah, getting that all measured and cut. It's not glued down at the moment. I'm just getting it all cut to size, just so I can mark out where all my holes and lines and joins are going to be. This was the auger. Oh, and I just fell in the pond. Ha! Remember that. Yeah, nearly broke my neck. It's a long way down. Climbing over the step to get in and fell in. But as I was saying, use my auger bit there to drill my hole. And best little tool ever if you're buying sleepers. Get yourself an auger bit like that, and you can actually drill through in one go without having to try and line up your holes from one side to the other. It literally just cuts through in one go, and as you can see, leaves quite a nice clean cut as well. There was a small bit of blowout on the other side, but very minimal, and as you can see, it was the perfect size for the pipe that I was using, and that just slid through an absolute dream. Real snug fit as well, no wobble to it or anything. So final stages, all the rebar, all the screws are in. That's the window there, all level. The window's obviously not in, but the gap where the window sits. So yeah, put all my brackets back on. Used up as many of the old brackets as I could, because as you saw in the previous video, I had a fair few brackets on my old pond. So then just time to get the insulation in and the window frame. And as you can see there, the window frame's all in. Started now chamfering all the soil off up to the insulation boards. Doing a cracking job on that. more digging. Don't we all just love digging? But yeah, just a little bit more to shave off, as you can see on that side, but getting there. And then I hadn't got round to that side at that moment, but yeah, it's from one spade to the other is where I was up to there. So just that corner left to go, and then just to neaten it all up. And yeah, don't we just love digging? And as you all know, my pond is 5'9" deep, maybe 5'10", and I had to lift all that soil out of there, bucket by bucket load. But yeah, window frame's now in. As you can see here, my box steel, I've got one screw in each sleeper, taped over obviously all the screws, as you can see here. But yeah, that's a 100mm screw going through, 8mm as well, so it's going in to about there. Obviously it would have come just out if I didn't have the 25mm box steel there, so it's basically 25mm from the end of the sleeper. So beefy screw, not that they needed to be that big, but as I said earlier, it just helps reinforce the sleepers and the pond at that stage at the window, which is the weakest point, isn't it? So why not use something to hold it all in? And as you can see there, the bar comes right the way down to the very last sleeper, and then you've got the crossbar that's just going across there. Ideally, if I had a welder, I could have welded it at them points. Oh, bit of mud out of the way. But yeah, it certainly did the trick. There's 6 screws in that bit going along there, and then you've got the other up bar going there. 25mm stainless steel, and I just left that little gap at the top just so it wasn't a sharp edge at the very top, so it couldn't damage the liner in any way. So it's then time to finish chamfering off all the soil. As you can see there, lifting it out bucket by bucket, climbing up onto the step, putting the bucket on the wall, and then walking it down the bottom of the garden and throwing it in my bag. So the last stage of this section, all the edges were now chamfered, most of the soil was out. Just got to sweep up the bottom, which is what I was doing now. But as you can see there, it was pretty darn straight at this point. I did hack off a little bit of the concrete collar there, if you remember the old pipe under the step, just because it wasn't a perfectly straight edge. So chiseled a bit of that off just to round it up. When we get to the underlay, you'll see there's not going to be any problems with the underlay on this pond, that's for sure. But yeah, nice and straight edges, just a case of clearing out the bottom now, getting ready to stick the underlay in. Yeah, so once all the digging was done on the actual pond itself, you can see here, managed to get a concrete base down for my filter house. That's 6 inches deep, solid concrete. Also chopping up the old scaffolding boards that used to be the old pond, getting them all cut to size. Got a door there I was making on the right. The longer ones are for the back, and then all the slightly shorter ones were for the sides. But yeah, they were in pretty good nick considering they come off a 3-year-old pond. But gave them all a paint, used the last bit of the creosote to give them a coat, and then once they'd all dried out, I could then start painting them the colour that they were going to be. Nala, as always, helping. Yeah, and once they were fully dried out, could then start painting them and putting them together. So these are the doors. Worked quite well, actually. You'll see when it's finished how well they actually worked. But blooming heavy. I mean, each door's 3 foot, or just over 3 foot. As you can see, they've got 5 scaffolding boards of 3 foot going up. So yeah, they weighed a fair bit, but it worked. And then moving on, this was the first panel I built. This was the back panel. As you can see, all painted on the outside. Obviously it had been creosoted, so I didn't bother painting it on the inside. It was more for cosmetic appearance than it was water protection. Again, another solid piece of wood. Done a grand job. Alright, now that was coming together, I started working on some pipe work. So getting me flange connector into the pond, and then glued up me 90 to go in behind that. That's a hose tail connector straight into a 90, and then that's going to go in behind there. So what I had to do, because I was building this pond completely on my own, I had to wedge it in with a big lump of hardwood and a bucket of stones, and that way I could actually put some pressure behind it to keep it in place while I glued it up. So here I am, just gluing that 90 with a hose tail onto the flange connector, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that glued up a treat, that bit. I did have a little leak in that line of pipe, but it weren't there, thank God, because I wouldn't have been able to do much about that apart from cut it out and start again. And that'd be very difficult once it was full of water and the liner was in, so I'm glad that one glued up pretty well. But as you could see there, I used up a hell of a lot of glue doing that one, because that is the last one I wanted to leak. But yeah, that worked a treat. As you can see there, all beautiful. And it was back on to do some work on the filter house. So built a side, got that attached to the back panel, and as you can see there, got that insulated as well. Painted that all up. Looks pretty good at this stage. So I got the doors there, they're already painted, and now just working on painting up the other side, ready to start attaching that. And then that was it, ready to start putting the pond together now. So the bottom, as you can see, is all sanded, make it all nice and levelly flat, tampered it all down, made sure it was level everywhere. Yes, there is 2 different colour sands. I have no idea why it was all sharp sand, but yeah, 3 or 4 of the bags I'd picked up were dark brown and the rest was sand colour. So very odd, just showing you there. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed that. I certainly did. Again, took a long time editing, but I got there in the end. But yeah, so at this stage, obviously, I've just started building the field house, and on the next episode, we're going to be getting the liner in, the bottom drain in, and getting it all plumbed up, get the drum in, and getting it all singing and dancing. So if I haven't earned your subscription today, now's a good time to subscribe, and then you can come back and see me set the rest of the pond up. So thanks all for watching, and we'll catch you all on the next one.